Good evening and welcome to CYC News for today, the 23rd of November 2014 AD and the 14th of Hatur 1731 AM. I'm Angie. In today's headlines, a new report reveals that nearly 18,000 have been killed by terrorist attacks in 2013. Several Christians displaced from a village in Pakistan. The UN High Commissioner for Human Rights in Iraq says Iraqi minorities are subjected to genocide and crimes against humanity. 100,000 Christians scattered but remain to bear witness in Nigeria, and 100 Hindu radicals attack a Christian community in India. A report released this week by the Institute for Economics and Peace, an independent think tank based in the US, indicates that nearly 18,000 people were killed by terrorist attacks in 2013, a 61% increase over the previous year. Of the 17,958 killed, 82% were concentrated in 5 countries: Iraq, Afghanistan, Pakistan, Nigeria, and Syria, reveals the 2014 Global Terrorism Index report. The group puts that number in perspective, however, by adding that 40 times more people are killed by homicides than terrorist attacks. A summary by Vision of Humanity lists some of the key facts revealed in the report. More than 90% of terrorist attacks occurred in countries with gross human rights violations, and 4 groups were responsible for roughly 2/3 of the fatalities of the terrorist attacks in 2013. The Taliban, Boko Haram, the Islamic State organization, and Al-Qaeda. The second edition of the Global Terrorism Index found Iraq to be the country most impacted by terrorism, with 6,362 people dying in 2,492 separate attacks. The report also touched on causes of terrorism, finding 3 main factors associated with terrorism and terrorist attacks: state-sponsored violence, such as extrajudicial killings, group grievances, and high levels of criminality. It found that poverty, school attendance, and economic factors had little to no association with terrorism. Punjab province in Pakistan witnessed a new tragedy when Christian families living in Sahiwal village were forced to leave their homes under threats from Muslims in the area, who targeted the Christian community after a Christian man married a Muslim woman. Muslims in Sahiwal attacked husband Shihab's family and other Christian families in the village. The 9 Christian families in Sahiwal did not receive any help from the police and were forced to flee from their village out of fear for their lives, leaving their homes and works. This is the 3rd time within several weeks where Christian families in Punjab have been forced to leave the village because of threats from the Muslim community. 2 weeks ago, a Pakistani Christian couple were burnt alive in a brick kiln by a crowd of Muslims on charges of blasphemy, although it was later revealed that the couple were demanding back their salary from the kiln owner, who then accused them of blasphemy. Minorities in Iraq are being subjected to genocide and crimes against humanity at the hands of the Islamic State group, which aims to disintegrate the unity of the community and to change its demography, stated the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights in Iraq. Fadel Graoui, board member of the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights, said in a statement published Wednesday that there are thousands of proofs indicating that IS committed crimes against humanity against minorities. He mentioned that Shabak, Christians, and Yazidis were subjected to killings in Nineveh province, and Shabak people were abducted for ransom demand, and they were killed. He also said that the nuns and Christian orphans have been abducted. He mentioned that ISIS also bombed and burnt churches, smashed crosses, and took churches as their own headquarters, adding that they destroyed and burnt villages of the Shabak people, seized property and houses of Christians, Shabaks, and Yazidis, and burned innocent families alive. Graoui mentioned that the number of the displaced persons reached 300,000, and most of them are homeless and facing a humanitarian disaster. He stressed that their children died in Sinjar and Tal Afar mountains, and some pregnant women died, while others gave birth while displaced. He also mentioned that women were sold in public auction, and children were recruited to carry out terrorist operations. According to UN figures, More than 5 million Iraqi citizens need urgent assistance, and there is a need for 173 million to provide the supplies of winter season to the displaced citizens. It has been reported that over 100,000 Catholics have been forced to flee from parts of northern Nigeria controlled by the terrorist group Boko Haram. Thousands have sought refuge in mountain caves, and very few have managed to escape. Those Catholics still in Boko Haram-controlled areas have been forced to allow the strict interpretation of the rules of Sharia. Terrorists have declared that all conquered cities are part of the Islamic Caliphate. Several of the escaped Christians, including 5 priests and 2 nuns, fled to Cameroon, where they were trapped for days. A crowd of more than 100 Hindu extremists attacked and beat members of a Christian community in Udu Malpet in Mumbai, India, on November 16, according to the Global Council of Indian Christians. The Asian News Agency reported that Reverend Sati and 4 of his congregation have been hospitalized in serious condition. Some attackers followed the victims to the hospital and threatened them. The radical group attacked the Christians before entering into the church and destroying a number of vehicles parked in the churchyard. A source continued, "Once inside, the militants attacked those present, burnt the Bibles, and broke musical instruments." The president of the Global Council of Indian Christians called on National Commission for Human Rights to protect Christians in the state. He condemned this anti-Christian violence in an interview with Asian News. He added that this incident spreads a culture that holds religious conversions to be illegal through the law guarantees of freedom of worship. He emphasized that police silence in responding to this violence remains a pervasive problem for the tiny Christian minority in India. And that's all for CYC News. Stay tuned for more Christian content on CYC. I'm Angie, and from the CYC studios in Sydney, Australia, good night and God bless.